Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Chelsea Aaron here just to give you some updates. Feel free to put any of your questions in the comments, and I say this as a forewarning every single time, but note, please try to put them on my personal page wherever you can find this Facebook Live at, because this video is likely going to be cross-posted to several other pages, including our WAFF 48 news page. Unfortunately, if you put any questions or comments on those pages, I'm not going to be able to see those, but I've been getting messages, emails like crazy, many of you very concerned and wanting to know exact timing, intensity of the potential impacts that we could see from what is now Hurricane Francine. Now note, by the time this storm system reaches us, we're just going to be dealing with the remnants of it. However, it still will be quite impactful here across the Tennessee Valley. So I'm going to let a few more people jump on, and then I'm just going to get right into it and also give you some updates as we head toward the latter half of the week, because we have been monitoring the severe weather risk. However, I am noticing with some of our high resolution model data that Friday more than likely is going to be a big day to watch for the potential for severe weather. And I'm going to talk more about that as well, because many people asking about Friday night football. I know we need the rain. I wish we could just get the rain and not everything else that is coming with it. But our main impacts likely going to be strong gusty winds. Note, these are going to be gradient winds, non-thunderstorm related, as the remnants move in again by daybreak tomorrow and all the way through likely the early evening hours on Friday. But separate from the winds, we are going to be dealing with very heavy rainfall. And note, our soils are not saturated at all. We have been dealing with ongoing drought conditions for some time now. So think of it as putting on water on Velcro, really. It's just going to slide right off. So we will be watching for some flash flooding issues as well. And all of these potential impacts still going to be highly dependent on the exact track of Francine. Some of the latest model guidance yesterday had it on a more easterly track. It has moved just to the west. The National Hurricane Center, its latest track, latest update was just at 1 o'clock this afternoon. It slightly shifted to the west, but as far as the impacts for us goes, those really haven't changed all that much. So a lot of people have hopped on, so I'm going to go ahead and get right into what's happening. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is a satellite imagery look of Hurricane Francine, and conditions are already starting to deteriorate there along the Louisiana coast. There's a tornado watch already in effect. This includes portions of New Orleans and to the south. And you notice those purple colors, those are very, very strong convective columns or towers that we call them. So it is indicating that Hurricane Francine is strengthening. It became a hurricane last night, and it currently has maximum sustained wind speeds at 90 miles per hour. So this is a very high-end Category 1 storm. It's forecasted to make a landfall later on tonight. A lot of the models were showing it heading straight to New Orleans yesterday in that eastward track, but I think it's going to make landfall just to the west of New Orleans, more towards Baton Rouge. So if you do have any family along these areas, or maybe you just have some friends traveling, make sure they know what's going on, because a lot of people get so caught up in the categories of hurricanes. But note, the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is your Category 1 all the way to your Category 5 storms, those are essentially designated just based on wind speed. So this doesn't account storm surge or any of the water, and water usually has the bigger impact altogether. So yes, it's forecasted to make landfall later on today as a Category 1 hurricane. You can't really see the eye on that imagery that I just showed you, but you can see it a little bit better on this one here. This is going to be taking in some radar data from Lake Charles there, right along the coast of the bayou. Not much happening for us yet here in the Tennessee Valley, but things are going to change, and they're going to change quite quickly. The rest of your week, the weather is going to go downhill, and we've also noticed that latest forecast guidance just shows the remnants, or what will be left of Hurricane Francine, just meandering around, hanging out. It doesn't really want to leave. And it'll just be sticking around mainly to our northwest over the weekend. So more than likely we are going to have to up or increase rain chances over the weekend, mainly on Saturday, I believe, just the way things look now. But as far as primary impacts, the strongest of the wind gusts will likely be relaxing by Friday evening. So I think Saturday mainly will just be a rain event. One could only hope after we get through the days ahead. But yeah, just some cloud cover will be streaming in across the Tennessee Valley today. Rain will start to spread in overnight, and you notice the winds are very breezy today as well. They'll start picking up out of the east-southeast later on tonight and into your Thursday morning. So here's just the latest track from the National Hurricane Center of Francine. Again, forecasted to make landfall just to the west of New Orleans, headed more towards the Baton Rouge area, either later this afternoon or early this evening. It's moving northeasterly at 16 miles per hour. Our next update will be at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and of course, Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis, he will have additional updates and details of what you can expect throughout the week. So after it makes landfall, it is going to weaken quite rapidly as it moves into central Mississippi. What we're going to be dealing with more than likely will either be an extratropical depression or, again, just an upper level low. But rain will start to spread in as early as midnight tonight, with some pockets of heavier rain possible for your early morning commute. Not only will the rain chances increase, but like I mentioned as well, the wind speeds will increase as well. Currently out of the east-southeast, occasional gusts at this hour at 20 miles per hour, but by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, they're already going to be in that 30 to 35 mile per hour range potentially. So I highly recommend taking today as a prep day. Prepare. With the recent cool downs, you maybe have a lot of fall decor outside, some pumpkins, the cinnamon brooms from Trader Joe's. They're the best if you ask me. But make sure if you have anything outside, your cutesy stuff, bring it indoors today. Because tomorrow morning, yes, the winds will be increasing to nearly 30, 35 miles per hour, but they'll continue to strengthen through the afternoon. So by the late afternoon, we could see winds exceed 40 miles per hour. That's high enough to cause some minor power outages across the region. And note, in higher elevations, the wind speeds will be much higher. So areas like Sand Mountain, you possibly could see some winds as high as 50 miles per hour. And again, these are what we call gradient wind gusts. They're not related to thunderstorm activity, which we very well could get some damaging winds out of a few more organized storms Thursday afternoon and into Friday as well, but these are just going to be due to a very tight pressure gradient as that area of low pressure tracks to the north and lifts to the north. And you notice the winds do stay steady, especially for areas along and east of I-65, 35, 40 miles per hour, even into Thursday evening. They do start to relax as we head into Friday evening, but note throughout Friday, throughout the day, they still could be gusting anywhere in that 30 to 35 mile per hour range. And I'm just going to check some of the comments here. We have some questions. and just also some feelings about all of this. Bill said, we sure need the rain, but I don't want any bad storms. I agree, Bill. I agree. It's hard for us to get the best of both worlds here. But like I always say, it could always be worse. We need to remember our friends in Louisiana and along the bayou. So Hannah Stone, do you possibly think that tornado watches will be issued tomorrow? There's really no way to know that. So there's a chain reaction of how we see watches and warnings across the Tennessee Valley, especially when it comes to severe weather. Typically, that will begin as a conversation between the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service of Huntsville. They'll coordinate and talk about a potential watch being issued, and then of course the National Weather Service in Huntsville will then follow suit and issue warnings as need be, whether it's a tornado watch, a tornado warning, a severe thunderstorm watch, a severe thunderstorm warning. However, they typically do not do that days in advance. They do that day of. So if we were to get a watch, we're probably going to know that at the soonest tomorrow. And of course, we're going to communicate that to you, but there's no way to know if we are going to see a watch at any point today. Hannah also asks, do you think it won't be a huge issue tomorrow? Our main impacts more than likely are going to be these strong gusty gradient winds and also very heavy rainfall. I'm also going to take you through a future cast of when the heaviest rain will move in. A tornado threat, it's a very low-end tornado threat, and this is quite typical on the eastern side of landfalling tropical systems. And lucky for us, we just happen to be there this time. But I want to get into further information about Friday because we're getting closer and closer, and so we're able to get into the high resolution data. And Friday is looking a bit concerning. Now note, these are not going to be long track strong tornadoes. These are going to be very brief spin up in nature tornadoes, but it's a tornado nonetheless. So we want you to have all the information. We want to be fully transparent so you can start preparing now and keep you and your family safe. And again, if you have friends and family who are going to be traveling, if you're going to the beach, note, conditions will probably get better very, very quickly. Because I actually have some friends that are going to the beach tomorrow. Because this tropical system is going to lift north again quite quickly. So it will be rather short-lived if you're going to places like Gulf Shores, Panama City Beach. Oh, thank you, Ian. I would love to meet you one day as well. It's been quite some time since I've been with y'all doing a Facebook Live, and usually it's in the wee hours of the night, so I missed y'all. I'm happy to do it on a Wednesday afternoon when things are still quiet. And Skylar, you're asking for the rain amounts. I'm going to get to that as well. So these are just a look at some of the potential wind gusts. Like I mentioned, they still will be quite strong throughout the day on Friday, but if you're having questions about Friday night football, they will start to relax and subside by Friday evening. Now let's talk about the rain. So, no rain as of now. Some showers are already starting to overspread areas to our south of Montgomery, but rain will start to move in likely after midnight, but it will take some time for our atmospheric levels to moisten up, so to speak. So even after midnight, we could see some radar returns, some light greens, but that might end up being vertigo. And that's just rainfall that evaporates before it reaches the surface. So it will take some time, but I can almost guarantee you that by daybreak, by the time you're headed out the door, there will be some pockets of heavier rain, especially in northwest Alabama. Northwest Alabama, you likely will see the heaviest rain throughout this entire event. Heaviest rain and the strongest wind gusts. Even with the recent westward track from the National Hurricane Center, we are highly confident about this. Of course, Ian, I'm here to help. So heavy rain will begin for some areas as early as 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. And note, it's not going to rain everywhere all at once on Thursday. There will be some breaks, some intermittent minute periods between the rainfall. But northwest Alabama from Florence back into Russellville, even Red Bay, through Marion County, there are going to be more than likely heavy rain continuing for you through the mid to late morning hours and into the afternoon. While areas mainly to the east, you'll see a few spotty showers. It's going to be cloudy at times, but you're mainly dry. It's once we head into Friday afternoon that the severe weather risk begins to increase, because we're going to be tracking what we call convective-driven rain bands. So some of these outer bands, if you see that feature stretching from Birmingham all the way into Florence, what happens on the eastern side of landfalling tropical systems is we get increased wind shear. What is wind shear? It's the spin needed to rotate storms. And it does not take a lot of shear for a storm to rotate. And that's why we're looking at the possibility of these brief spin-up tornadoes. And it's not going to be a tornado outbreak, but yes, I believe at this time, just looking at model guidance, that we could probably see more than one tornado warning issued through the Thursday to Friday time frame. And we really don't have a lot of instability. That's what we're struggling with. But again, you don't need a lot of shear to cause a storm to rotate, especially when we have a setup like this. So that threat will begin Thursday afternoon, and it will initially start out for areas along and west of I-65. So northwest Alabama, you will be first, and these are going to be tracking to the north and west, not the north and east. We usually see tornadic storms move northeastward, but with the way that these outer bands are moving, they're going to be moving the opposite direction, so that's something to make note of as well. Know where you live on a map. Geography is very important when it comes to weather, because you need to be prepared and on your toes of what's coming down the line. So that tornado threat will initially begin in northwest Alabama. And as we head overnight and into Friday, I think that tornado threat altogether might shift towards northeast Alabama. So this is going to be area-wide. The Storm Prediction Center initially yesterday, they put out a marginal risk. So that's a level 1 out of 5 for severe weather, primarily for areas to the west. But this now covers all areas, west to east. And they've yet to put out an update for Friday, and that's really why I want to get into Friday, because Friday might be the more impactful day of severe weather. And I will tell you why. But yes, Thursday afternoon to at least Friday afternoon, potentially even the evening, we could see that severe weather risk. And you're kind of noticing these multi-cluster cells of storms. Again, not everyone's seeing rain all at once, but the purples and the reds, that's what we're really going to be watching for. And temperature is going to be cool. We might not even make it out of the 60s with added cloud cover and rain chances. So main impacts at this time: strong gusty winds, very heavy rainfall. These are not our primary impacts, but they're something that we're monitoring very closely. Brief spin-up tornadoes on both Thursday and Friday as well, and lightning will be a possibility, but that will be a possibility with our stronger storms, because again, we don't have a lot of instability to work with. We call instability, or CAPE, our convective available potential energy. That is the fuel to the storms. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. This is a really good graphic we like to use that shows both the energy, so the storms and fuel that we have to work with, but then also the wind shear, what could help some of these storms rotate. So this is just beginning Thursday morning. And you notice it's 0 because I told you we really don't have a lot of instability. We're really more concerned about the wind shear. But Thursday afternoon, that instability will start to build in from the south and west. You see Columbus, Mississippi, they're at 540 joules per kilogram. And you notice our number is still relatively low. But overnight, those numbers start to go up as you see this red swath. That is our convective available potential energy. Those numbers really start to increase overnight Thursday and into Friday morning. And when we start getting these multi-cluster cells moving in on top of them, they're lining up, showing us the potential that we could have, if not damaging wind gusts. We're going to be watching very closely also for the additional wind shear, which could help these storms rotate. You see 1,060 joules per kilogram. That's very high CAPE, very, very, very high instability that will start moving in overnight into Friday. And you combine that with the increased wind shear as well, Friday could get very dicey very quick. And what I am concerned about after looking at model guidance is we could get what we call a dry slot. And I want to explain this really quick, because a dry slot is very similar to what Louisiana saw after Beryl made landfall. If y'all remember Beryl a couple of months ago, and parts of Louisiana, they were on the eastern side of this landfalling tropical system, and they saw several tornado warnings. Not saying that that is going to happen for us, but they had a large dry intrusion. So a pocket of dry air that just punches in. And if that were to happen on Friday, which a lot of the model guidance is depicting, that would increase our severe weather risk, because this is going to create a significant contrast in moisture. So this is going to lead to enhanced updrafts, downdrafts, which will ultimately result in stronger winds potentially and more intense rainfall, and then again, that tornado threat that we discussed. So Friday is definitely going to be a day to be watched. Our current timeline covers from Thursday afternoon to the overnight early morning hours leading into Friday. More than likely, we are going to be coming up with a new timeline if this trend holds heading into Friday. I just want to make you aware that, yes, this is something that we definitely are monitoring. So this is that timeline that I just was referring to, that we came up with yesterday just based on the information that we had yesterday. But if trends continue to hold on Friday, Again, the Storm Prediction Center has yet to really give an update about the severe weather risk, but model guidance is leaning in an increased risk. So if trends hold, we're going to be coming up with an additional storm timeline. I know, bear with us. So that severe weather risk Thursday could start as early as 11 o'clock in the morning. For places in northwest Alabama, this would include Russellville, Red Bay, Haleyville, Hatton, Moulton, Addison. And then areas along Highway 72 back into the Huntsville metro area, you're going to be a little bit later into the afternoon, 2 o'clock to 11 o'clock into the evening. And then areas in northeast Alabama, this would include Sand Mountain, Scottsboro, Ider, Fort Payne, also portions of southern Middle Tennessee, 5 o'clock in the evening through 1 o'clock in the morning. So yes, this will more than likely be an overnight event. You need to have more than one way to receive watches and warnings. And make sure you, whatever device that you prefer, that you choose, have it on loud. Again, because when we do see overnight events, which my goodness, I've worked enough of them, so we see them quite frequently. That is additionally concerning because that puts people at a more vulnerable spot. Because what are you doing overnight? If you're a normal person, you're typically sleeping. And so we want everyone to be weather alert well ahead of time. That's why I'm doing this Facebook Live, to let you know what could be coming for Friday. Yes, our tornado threat at this time is rather low in considering all things, but if we do see any sort of a dry slot happen on Friday, that's going to increase our severe threat more than likely. And this is also another very, very, very good analysis graphic that actually Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis has made. I've used it before. I'm going to use it again to really emphasize the difference in between the severe weather risks Thursday and into Friday. Because by Friday, what we call the low-level jet, which are very high winds above the surface. Again, these are like 4,000, 4,500 feet above the ground. So don't read these numbers and think, oh my goodness, that is going to potentially be what's hitting my location. No. Now note, heavy rain can pull this down to the surface, but like we always say, it's guidance, it's not gospel. But the low-level jet is really going to be kicking in on Thursday. And that is the primary severe weather risk as we head into Thursday. This is going to give us more energy because, like I said, we're lacking a lot of instability. So if we see the low-level jet really kick in on Thursday, like it has been showing, and you'll notice it because of, look at these wind speeds, how they go from 22 miles per hour to nearly 70 miles per hour. And this is just showing that surge in energy that some of these storms will have to work with. But by Friday, the low-level jet will pretty much subside. And so our severe weather risk on Thursday will be dependent really on the LLJ, or the low-level jet as we call it, plus the increased wind shear. And then our severe weather threat on Friday is going to be more dependent on dry slots or dry intrusions of air. So please don't let your guard down on either day because timing is going to be very difficult. Right now we have a vague timing of basically Thursday afternoon to the early evening hours on Friday. That's a long time frame. But I'm just trying to portray and let you know what you could be in for. Hi, Amanda, and I'm just checking some of the comments. I'm sorry, I left y'all in the dark for a while. So I want to make sure I get to all of your comments and questions because, again, my inboxes have been absolutely flooded since the beginning of this week with questions, which this is a very intricate and complex setup. Don't think any question is dumb. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you. We are here to make this as simple as possible. Unfortunately, we can't make it go away. If we could, we'd probably get the Nobel Peace Prize, but you know, our job is just to be the messenger and to explain in layman's terms what can I expect when I head out the door on Thursday morning, when I'm picking my kids up from school Thursday afternoon, when I'm trying to go out to eat Friday evening. This is what this is for. So the low-level jet will start to kick in throughout the day on Thursday. And I mean, it's pretty powerful. I mean, you see some near 90-mile-per-hour winds there in Fayette. Granted, these are not at the surface, but some of these winds will be easily pulled down. Easily pulled down with the heavy rainfall that we're expecting. So this is going to be that initial severe weather risk beginning in northwest Alabama. And you'll see the spots from Fayette up to Hamilton, back into Jasper, Red Bay, Russellville, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Muck City, Florence. Even some of these brown colors are still relatively strong. But the low-level jet, like I mentioned, it gets out of here. It relaxes overnight into Friday. And so we're not going to be dealing with the influence of that on Friday for our severe weather threat, but I'm still very, very concerned about those dry slots that could happen, that could enhance our severe weather risk, potentially by Friday afternoon. Am I saying that will happen? No, but it could. And I already told someone that I would show the rainfall potential, so I'm going to do just that because this is really what we all want. Why can't we just have the rain? Rainfall totals look very impressive, but like I mentioned at the beginning of my Facebook Live, we are bone dry. So it's going to take some time for the soils or the ground to moisten up. It's going to be like pouring water on Velcro at first. It's going to slide off a little bit. We're going to be dealing with potentially some flash flooding issues. Rain totals more than likely are going to be the highest across northwest Alabama. I know it's not depicting that necessarily on this model. This model is trying to gauge where some of those heavier convective-driven rain bands will be. Take it with a grain of salt. Arab, could you see almost 7 inches of rainfall? Probably not. But I think a safe bet is going to be potentially 1 to 4 inches area-wide. Areas to the west, you'll likely see 2 to 4. Areas to the east, you'll likely see 1 to 3, if that makes sense. And I'm just going to check some of the questions again really quick, just to make sure I have all of y'all covered. Hi, Amanda. Moore's Mill checking in. Thank you for joining me on this afternoone. Hannah Stone said, on my hourly Friday afternoon, it's just rain showers, but I couldn't see how much instability my area had, but I'm assuming it is the same as Hartselle. But anyways, there wasn't anything around on my area on the map, so I'm very confused. Well, I hope I have lessened your confusion. There's not much instability to work with altogether. There's more wind shear than anything. But instability looks to increase potentially if we see what I call a dry slot on Friday. And I'm going to go ahead and put my face back up here. Instability could increase, like I mentioned, if we do see some dry air enter the area by Friday afternoon. That's showing up on our latest model guidance, so we definitely want to keep an eye on that. And Hannah, this is going to be area-wide. Again, initially beginning in northwest Alabama on Thursday, that instability more than likely will come from the low-level jet, or the LLJ as we call it, and then it would progressively move to the north and east, almost like a semicircle kind of motion like this. So initially in northwest Alabama, and then spreading to areas along and east of I-65 overnight and into Friday. But again, main impacts overall, we are fairly confident, strong gusty gradient winds. These are going to be non-thunderstorm related winds. More than likely, we are going to see many of Alabama's state bird flying around. If you don't know my reference, just Google it. It's free. A trampoline, yes. More than likely, trampolines, things of that nature could be flying around with some gusts as high as 45, even 50 miles per hour for those higher elevations. Again, this will likely begin by Thursday afternoon, but winds will relax and subside by Friday evening. High school football is going to be highly dependent on if rain can get out of here Friday evening, and then also that severe weather risk, which could shape up by the time we head toward the latter half of the week. Again, we're going to continue to monitor those things, and we're also going to come up more than likely with a new timeline. Our current timeline really shows Thursday afternoon, overnight, and into the early morning hours on Friday. But just based on what we're looking at today and getting into with the high resolution data, we definitely need to focus more forward on Friday afternoon, potentially during the early evening hours. So I hope I answered all of your questions. I appreciate you for tuning in this afternoon. Of course, if you haven't already, please download our 48 First Alert weather apps. That's where you can get 24/7 updates, and you definitely want to stay updated with the latest information because this forecast has been a tricky one and it will be subject to change, especially in the days ahead. And the days ahead are the ones that matter. Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis, he is going to be in, of course, later on today, beginning the evening shows at 4 o'clock this afternoon. He might even do a Facebook Live or continue to give you social media updates. But one thing you can be sure of, your 48 First Alert weather team will not leave you out to dry. Thank you again, everyone.